How we doing? Happy Wednesday. Welcome in. This is something new, but something the same right here on Royals Central. I'm Joe Gaither, and we are firing off episode number 1 of the Joe Gaither Show on Royals Central. If you've been watching or listening to us on previous segments and previous iterations, we've been emanating out of BamaCentral.com, but this is not a college football website, and this is not a college football show. This is about the Major League Baseball and the Kansas City Royals, third place in the American League Central. And it's been a rough 2 weeks since the last time we were on with our friend Austin Bidwell. You're following him at Austin from KC on the Twitter machine. You're reading all of his great work at Royals Central and right there at Kansas City on SI. We've been on a couple of different times with Austin before in a previous format, but now we're on our show on our own, flying solo on Royals Central. So we appreciate everybody who's checking us out on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube at Joe Gaither 6. And we appreciate you more for subscribing, rating, and reviewing us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Amazon, the Joe Gaither Show on Royals Central. We're going to be doing this weekly with Austin Bidwell and other contributors from Royals Central, and we're in a pivotal time. But before we get into the right now, we'll back it on up and talk about how we've got here. It's a couple topics that we've covered before on the program, but we need to reset the table as it's the inaugural episode of the Joe Gaither Show on Royals Central. So to get started, Austin Bidwell, you're following him at Austin from KC. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. It's been a fun summer in Kansas City for the most part. Obviously, the last couple of weeks haven't gone as good, but for the most part, Royals having a better season as they've met the halfway point than either of the last 2 years. 43 and 38 in contention still for the wild card position. You have a little fall off, but the Guardians are not out of range. Let's talk about the season to this point, as you're right around the halfway point, like a day or two after the halfway point. And how have the Royals really found success on the whole this year?
Yeah, the Royals, they've been really good at home this year. I think that's one of the biggest parts of them is they've been, able to win a lot of the home games, win a lot of the contests in Kauffman. And that comes from, a restructured pitching staff. The starting pitching staff has been completely revamped from last year, and they've been phenomenal for the most part with Brady Singer, Alec Marsh, who has been hurt, but Seth Lugo, Cole Reagan. You just have all these guys that are ready to go in there and win a game. The bullpen, before the previous couple of weeks had been really, really good. They'd been able to go out there and close out games and, take the good starts from the revamped pitching crew and turn those into wins. So, it's just a little bit of, the GM and the front office doing a lot of work to get the pitching crew revamped and restructured, as well as some of the young talents such as, Bobby Witt, Vinny Pasquantino, Michael Garcia, just coming through and playing better than they did last year or actually being able to play this year. That's led to a drastic improvement in the Royals' record and ability.
Yeah, let's start with Seth Lugo, and then we'll turn it to Bobby Witt Jr. Seth Lugo really starting off the season strongly. What has been his maybe secret sauce for why he's found more success this year as he's kind of putting together a Cy Young contending season so far?
Yeah, so he actually added over the offseason, added an extra pitch into his arsenal. He's evened out his arsenal a lot. He has an array of pitches, including a slurve, which is very, uncommon for MLB pitchers to throw. And he throws it with such great vertical and horizontal break that it is a pitch that he can throw when he needs to get out of a bind or get a hitter guessing. And just his ability this year to mix it up more than he has in previous years. I talked to him about it a little bit, and he talked about how his ability to attack batters based on what he's seen previously, and that, he says he hasn't really changed his approach, but he's just come in this year and been able to mix it up better and get batters more confused when they're getting ready to go.
All right, and so let's flip it to a fielder, Bobby Witt Jr. He's missed pretty much. He missed all of last year, and now he's back in there playing at a superstar level at the shortstop. Talk about really what he's added to the Royals, and then just on a bigger picture note, what does it mean to have? I mean, you think about all the great teams in years past throughout Major League Baseball history, and there's a superstar shortstop for right there on the infield.
Yeah, so Bobby Witt Jr. has been, I mean, I guess what everyone expected him to be, being the second overall pick, plus just a little bit more because, he was good previous years. He, had not been disappointing anybody by any means. He had been, doing what he needed to do, setting, rookie records, doing that. But you come in the season and he has been a superstar, not just in Kansas City, but on a league-wide level and contention for, MVP discussions for all of these awards, and it's just been a testament to how he's been playing, how the team's been playing, because he has been playing like a superstar, one of the best shortstops in the league, going toe to toe with probably just Orioles Gunnar Henderson at this point for the title of best shortstop in the league, and one of the best young players in the league. So not just him being him and bringing a lot to the Royals team on the field, but when you go back and you think about some of the Royals legends like George Brett or, Bo Jackson or some of the great teams the Royals have had, they've always had the guy to do it. And this has been their guy. This will continue to be the guy for the Royals. And I think that if you want to contend and you want to have great postseason moments, you ultimate times need that guy to go out there and make a series-defining, game-defining play. And the Royals have their guy to do that now with Bobby Witt Jr.
All right, so those are kind of newer faces to the Kansas City Royals, but they've always had a stalwart behind the plate, Salvador Perez. And you think about the makeup of, again, you think about the makeup of really strong baseball teams at the major league level, and there is an anchor behind the plate. Salvador Perez has been with the Royals for many years now, but the consistency that he is showing as like an 8-9 year vet in Major League Baseball has just talk about what his influence has been through the entire organization as they try to kind of take steps forward as a franchise.
Yeah, so I'd almost even go a step farther than consistency and saying his ability to get better after all these years, because starting this season, he was one of the best players in the MLB in terms of hitting. He had he was one of the best defense players and offense players in the league start the season at both catcher, and his new transition to first base kind of shows not only his ability on the field, but his ability as a leader and as a important part of the team to be willing to move from catcher to first base for some games in order to get, Freddie Fermi in behind the plate or get certain guys in a position to help the team win, because there's a lot of old veteran players who wouldn't do that, who wouldn't, make that sacrifice and move their positions this late into their career for the betterment of the team and the betterment of themselves as a player. And I think that speaks a lot to Salvador Perez's character, because you've never heard anything about Salvador Perez not being anything besides a great teammate, a great guy, a great player on and off the diamond. So I think that him being a stalwart, to the team through those postseason runs back when they were winning titles or being in the World Series, I think that affects this team a lot now, as having a voice to rely to, having a veteran presence to turn to, and just having a great teammate that you can rely on both on the field and off the field for almost anything.
All right, so we've got right here to the halfway point, 43 wins. But we've been doing this kind of segment. I know this is the first one that's standing alone on Royals Central, but we've been doing this kind of conversation for maybe almost a month now. When we first started, the Royals were 4 or 5 games behind the Guardians. Now, when we look up the standings, the Royals are 10 games behind the Guardians. 10 or 9? 10. Yeah, 10 net games behind the Guardians. You've looked at it, and you looked at the schedule. June has not been kind to Kansas City. Since the last time we talked, they've gone 3-8. Now, the competition in June has been very, very difficult. You look at the Guardians leading the AL Central. You look at the Mariners leading the AL West. You look at the Yankees leading the AL East. So, you're playing some really good teams, and throw in the Dodgers in the National League as well. But you had a chance. The Royals had a chance this past week to go against some maybe subpar teams in the Oakland Athletics, the Texas Rangers, and now in the middle of a series with the Miami Marlins. But the season is kind of falling into maybe a little bit of a crossroads point. Let's talk about the challenge of the month of June. The relief pitching has kind of had a hard time. And the last time that we were on, it was, falling into bad starts, giving up a lot of runs in the first inning or two and not being able to overcome that consistently. What's your assessment of the month of June for the Royals? I mean, you started off so strong, but now here you are in the heat of the summer and things are starting to get tough.
Yeah, I think that there were a lot of negatives in the month of June for the Royals. But on the other side, I think that there were some positives for the Royals in the month of June. Going through all that tough competition, obviously, the record that the Royals sustained through the month is not something that you want to replicate ever, and especially in series against the A's or against the Marlins, where you theoretically should be going out there and getting wins. But I think that a problem that the Royals have faced consistently throughout, their losses in these series are problems that are easily fixable, at least to a degree. In terms of, relief pitching, or the Royals have much better improved their first inning pitching and early pitching over the last couple of games, the last couple of series. But, now it turns to the relievers and the bullpen who, have been costing the Royals games, to put it honestly, including a game last night where the Royals pitched scoreless innings from Seth Lugo, and then immediately give up 2 runs as soon as Seth Lugo comes out to lose the game. So, there's signs that the Royals definitely need to make some adjustments. There have been signs the entire road trip to the Royals probably should have made some adjustments. But I think the good thing is that those adjustments are pretty easily made, in terms of going out and getting, another arm to put in the bullpen, or, finding an answer in the bullpen, because it's not a talent issue. It's not an issue of do we have the guys or can we get the guys for the Royals, but it's instead all right, let's go do it. Let's make it happen, because right now, whatever the Royals are doing is not working in terms of the bullpen. The hitting for a while went really cold. They had 2 runs over the course of 3 games, and that's just something that cannot happen regardless of who you're playing. So, it's just terms of little stretches of bad hitting mixed with a faltering bullpen right now that is leading the Royals to drop some of these series that, maybe they should lose, but also some of the ones that they definitely should not be losing. So, in terms of winning games and getting back on track for Kansas City, if they want to do that, they have to fix the small things and the small issues.
All right, so we're hanging out with Austin Bidwell from RoyalsCentral. You're following him at Austin from KC. Let's take a little step away from the actual diamond. What do you like about being involved in being involved with RoyalsCentral? How's it been covering a baseball team day in and day out? I hear that and I think, oh my gosh, brutal as far as job search status. But it takes a special journalist. It takes a special media man to really be following baseball day in and day out. I can do it about once a week and follow it through the week, but you're living it. What's your favorite part about being involved and going to these games and covering the Kansas City Royals?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. There's nothing better than a baseball environment. Kauffman is obviously just a really great venue to be at. Everyone in the Royals organization is so nice, so kind, just the greatest. That's from the door people down to the players. When you talk to the players, everyone is just smile on their face, happy to be there, and I don't think that there's much better. Obviously, I could never even think about running the site. Matthew has been just sensational in his coverage of the Royals. Hunter, when he jumps in, has been spectacular. So, obviously could never do it without those 2 guys to kind of help pick everything up. But it's just been fun. It's been a lot of fun to write about the Royals, to get to watch the Royals, to get to talk to some of the guys. Just all around, it's been really awesome.
Well, let me go inside your brain a little bit, or inside your heart a little bit. I know we want to stay objective as we can, but how did you? I think we've talked about it off air. You grew up in the Kansas City area. You've grown up following the Royals. Was it by default? I'm a Royals fan, or was there something in your youth that said, "Oh, I love this team now," or "They're my team"?
Yeah. So, growing up in Kansas City, baseball, I didn't really watch a lot of baseball as a kid. It's hard to follow, especially as someone that young. But I wasn't very old when the Royals were doing their thing in the World Series, so just kind of growing up with the Royals actually being, good, actually being one of the most exciting teams to watch. It's hard to see that and then turn the other way. Like it'd be like living in Kansas City now and watching Patrick Mahomes and deciding not to be a Chiefs fan, which.
Fair. We'll go down that path for just a second. Do you like Travis Kelce dancing on stage in London with his lady friend Taylor Swift?
It's funny that I just said that because I'm actually not even a Chiefs fan myself.
Oh no!
Yeah. I'm a Saints fan. Became a Saints fan before Patrick Mahomes even thought about coming to KC. So Travis Kelce can do whatever he wants. Hopefully he's staying up too late and not working for another Super Bowl because I'm tired of seeing him win it.
Who that said he gonna beat them Saints? We'll keep an eye. We'll file that away in our brains here. Let's get back to the Royals here. As you look ahead to the month of July, well, really, I don't want to look ahead too much because you got a big game with the Marlins to salvage the series against the Marlins, and that would be a nice spark going into the weekend. You got a huge 4-game set with the Cleveland Guardians, and yeah, we just hit it. You're 10 games behind the Guardians, but you take 3 out of 4 against the Guardians. You can eat into that lead. Do you think the adjustments will be made in the bullpen, or do you think it's managerial, or do you think it may just be a lack of? Not, I want to say talent. These guys are all super talented, and they can spin the baseball a lot better than I could ever dream. Do you think it's managerial decisions that are at play in some of these costly blown leads, or do you think that it's just a matter of not having enough arms in that area of the team?
No, I think it's definitely a mix of those both. Kind of last night's game against the Marlins is one that I think of when I think about managerial decisions because Seth Lugo finished the 6th inning. I believe he had somewhere around 87 total pitches, and he did not pitch anymore for the rest of the game. They pulled him after the 6th inning of scoreless baseball, and they put in Carlos Hernandez, and he went out and let up 2 runs. But the night before, Cole Reagan's finished with 105 pitches because they wanted to allow him to run the next inning. So, it's just in terms of small things like that cost the Royals games where, you don't want to put it all on the manager. You don't want to put anything on the manager, especially since the Royals did only let up 2 runs the entire game. But it's hard to look at things like those consistently over the course of a season and not create a little, almost narrative in your head that there are some decisions that are costing the Royals games that probably need to be looked at or adjusted. But at the end of the day, regardless of what manager Matt Quantrero does, unless this Royals team gets another arm in that bullpen, they're not going to be sustainable regardless the order you play them in, regardless the innings you play them in, regardless of the time you play them in, because at the end of the day, they're just getting beat up, regardless of who, what day. And that's not to say that they're all consistently bad or can't consistently play in the bullpen because, players like John Schreiber, Angel Zerpa, these guys who have shown in the past that they can and will hold innings in that bullpen, just can't do it every night. And until you get a real guy to come in and close games instead of James McArthur, as good as James McArthur can be, as a mid-piece in that bullpen, you can't really send him out there to the closer music if he's not getting it done every night.
Let's take you into a Royals Central where Matthew Gibson rode yesterday. Royals at the crossroads, because we're building on this topic right here. We're dancing around, and I feel like it's time to dive into it. Royals at the crossroads, to buy or not to buy at the trade deadline. Matthew lays out a lot of, he lays out both sides of the arguments and really even the middle ground here. You look at the Royals having a better season than they've really had, at least in the last 3 years, but really on this upward trajectory. And you've got veterans like Salvador Perez, and you've got a nice little nucleus of players. And so you think, okay, do we go for it? Do the Royals go for, hey, we want to be in the postseason. We want to give the Guardians a run for their money. Or do you say, okay, we're going to hold pat, or we're going to stay with what we got. We're not going to, we're not going to sacrifice future assets if we have any future assets to try to see what this group can do. Or do you just sell some of the old guys and try to say, okay, this was a good first half of 2024. We're going to sell some of the old guys and try to build for 2025. Let's just start with let's just start with being sellers, because I think that's the unpopular opinion. All the fans, everybody who's supporting the Royals, obviously you want to take advantage of every single season, and you've got a little bit of you've got some legitimate hope, you've got some legitimate bright spots this season to really build on and say, okay, if this changes, a couple bullpen decisions, if that changes, getting some hot bats, then maybe you can close the gap on the Guardians and really become leaders in the AL Central, or become firmly into the wild card spot. Let's talk about sellers. If we're selling, if they make the unpopular decision, JJ Piccolo, right? Am I saying that correct? The general manager. If JJ Piccolo makes the unpopular decision to become sellers at the July 30th deadline, who are some of the players that we might be saying goodbye to in the two-tone blue?
Yeah, so I think that if he does make the decision that the Royals can be sellers at this deadline, which is not something that I necessarily believe just based on the things that are being said about the Royals, and I think that some names that you could see go first are outfielders or guys who are leaning on the veteran side. MJ Melendez is a guy that I think could be moved pretty early. Nelson Velasquez was just optioned to AAA. He has a lot of talent, hasn't been with the Royals for very long. I think some teams could see that, and the Royals could choose to move on from him. I don't know if there's many guys that the Royals wouldn't be willing to move on to outside of I think Salvador Perez will retire a Royal if he decides to. I don't think that the front office would ever decide to let him go. Bobby Witt Jr., obviously untouchable. And guys like Michael and Vinny, you don't really want to get rid of because they've been fantastic this season. They've shown they can be vital parts to a winning team. But outside of that, I mean, there's not really a guy that you look at and you say, man, I really want you. Obviously, there's parts of the pitching rotation you're not going to get rid of, like, Lugo, Singer, or Reagans. But, even a guy like Singer could actually be one of the guys that gets sent out for younger talent or, even older talent to build towards the next year. So, no one on the team really is safe outside of 4 or 5 guys. But I think that we could see some of the outfielders, some of the mid-age, Kyle Isbells, Hunter Renfroe, maybe getting thrown into a deal to sweeten it. But I don't believe that any of the young pieces would be in danger of getting moved.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the other side, the side where I think it excites the fans a lot more. And we like to be on the exciting side. Selling sucks. Selling is terrible. Mailing in the year to get ready for next year. Baseball's too long of a season to, in my opinion, get behind that. I know that's often a smart mindset, a wise mindset, but it's a difficult path to take. The buying path's a lot more fun. And I'm going not right here to our friend Jeff Passan. He's written for ESPN Plus 2024 Major League Baseball trade deadline, Passan's top edition for the contenders. And we're looking at a handful of guys. Let's start with a fielder, and then we'll go into the bullpen. You hit on selling MJ Melendez or getting an upgrade for MJ Melendez. And Jeff Passan, great reporter for ESPN. He says, and he writes that the Kansas City Royals, their best kind of target should be a guy like Taylor Ward. And so I look at Taylor Ward playing left field for the Los Angeles Angels. Is it still the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim? What a fun name for them. But you're looking at Taylor Ward, and this year he's hitting 245. He's got 41 RBIs. He's got 3 stolen bases, on-base percentage of 328, 14 home runs. That's what I'm looking for, 14 home runs. So let's ask you about Taylor Ward. He's been with the Angels. Let's see, his entire career. And we'll ask you to your opinion on Taylor Ward and really any other fielders / hitters that you think might be out there for the Royals to acquire.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's not a bad option at all for Kansas City. Taylor Ward's a guy that can go out and get you some hits. He's a guy that's going to be fine in the field at a mid-price point. He's not going to be super expensive like some of the other targets the Royals might attempt to acquire may be. But, if the question is just do you think that he's going to put you over the hump that you need? With MJ Melendez hitting much better than he has been recently, he's been a guy that, is on the upswing in terms of production. You could see Taylor Ward sliding anywhere into that outfield. But for the Royals, something that I think is more of a popular option, maybe amongst fans than anything else, would be go after a guy like Luis Robert, who is going to be extremely expensive for the Royals, but is a guy that undoubtedly could help push the Royals over the edge if they could end up acquiring a guy like that from the White Sox. Someone who could go out there and instantly become one of the best hitters on your team. Now, I think, don't get me wrong, a trade for Taylor Ward would absolutely benefit the Royals, but right now I don't think the Royals are in a position to where they can go halfway in, or they can, trade for a guy that helps them but doesn't majorly improve the team, because the Royals right now, if they buy and they don't do anything, are in a very bad position for the future. Especially with the potential they have to either, kind of just call it this year with what they have, or, even sell some of their prospects. So I think right now, if the decision is at the end to sell and go in, you have to sell and go in. And I think a guy like Luis Robert Jr., in my opinion, is the best option for the Royals right now. There's obviously a lot of guys on the market, a lot of guys you could go for, but I just believe that wherever they go and whatever they decide to do, it has to be a big move, and it has to be something that's going to change the team.
All right, just a couple more minutes with our friend Austin Bidwell, and you can follow him on the Twitter machine at Austin from KC. We appreciate everybody listening to us or watching us in the inaugural episode of the Joe Gaither Show on Royals Central. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon. We're going to be doing this weekly with Austin, with Matthew, with Hunter, with all the contributors from Royals Central as we work our way through the rest of the 2024 season. We'll flip to the pitching side, and Jeff Passan throws three pitchers out there. He throws out Los Angeles Angels Carlos Estevez, 15 saves already this year, 3.24 ERA, so that's not amazing, but 27 strikeouts. He also throws out two to Tampa Bay Rays, Pete Fairbanks, 12 saves this year, another 3.25 ERA, but 30 strikeouts. And he throws out Jason Adam, only 3 saves for Jason Adam, 2.18 ERA, so much better ERA. 3 relievers that could potentially help the Royals. Do you like those guys? And is there anyone else in the relief pitching kind of category that you think the Royals should target?
Yeah, so out of those 3 names, a name that I've kind of been on for a little bit is Pete Fairbanks. A guy that went to Mizzou, has shown a lot of fire recently.
The Tigers.
Yeah, something I think that the Royals could really use. And he's be a guy that, would immediately become the closer for the Royals. He would immediately become the best guy on that rotation, arguably, if not definitely. So that's a name that I like. But I tend to go into the conversation about the bullpen a little less name-based, because I think that there's a lot of production out of guys, who may not have the best name value. So I'm not really going to point out names that I think the Royals should go at, but I just think that the bullpen has to be addressed in some shape or form or way. However the Royals choose to do that, they need to go out and get a guy that can give them innings and that can be a shutdown guy, preferably in the back end of the rotation towards the closer, spot. So a guy that can shut down the 8th or 9th inning. But every spot in that bullpen could use some work, could use some help. So I'm not really looking for the Royals to go out and get any specific names, just to go out and get arms.
Got to get some arms to eat up the innings in a long, long season. All right, let's close out with a bigger picture MLB topic. We'll hit some of the favorite MLB topics as well. We'll always focus on the Royals, but it's a big league, and I like the fun topics. Let's talk about the Mets just real briefly. The Mets started off the season just terrible, awful. But over the last 10 games, and dating back even further, they're 8-2 in the last 10 games. And I got some buddies who are Mets fans, and they are giving all the credit to Grimace, the McDonald's character Grimace. Apparently, he's throwing out the first pitch for the Mets, and they're starting to win. So, with that in mind, Well, I want to ask about, just your opinion on the gimmick of the Grimace Mets, but let's make it Royals centric. Is there any cartoon character? Is there any funny comedian? Is there any, local, get somebody out there with some barbecue, throwing barbecue, Kansas City barbecue while they're, throwing the first pitch while they're eating some Kansas City barbecue? How can the Royals steal some juju from the Grimace Mets?
Maybe we let them stay with their little restaurant gimmick, but I would love to see, old school Royal Billy Butler standing with a half rack of ribs at the mound while he throws a first pitch. That would be great. That would be, I think, my favorite first pitch.
Well, we got to make that happen. Well, maybe you can write up a column in the near future saying, "Okay, you see what they've done to turn their season around." The Royals don't need a season turnaround; they just need a little juice. They need a little infusion of some energy. Maybe Billy Butler is the key to that. Follow Austin Bidwell at Austin from KC for all this coverage of the Kansas City Royals. We're going to be doing this weekly with Austin and other contributors of the Royals Central. Austin, man, I appreciate your time. I hope you have a great week and enjoy the rest of the Marlins series. Go get some wins against the Guardians.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your weekend, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time. That's Austin Bidwell, and that's going to do it for our first edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Royals Central. We appreciate everybody who tuned in to us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and we appreciate everybody who subscribed to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. We'll be talking about the Kansas City Royals and all big picture Major League Baseball topics. We cannot wait for the rest of the season. The All-Star break is coming up in 3 or 4 weeks. We'll talk about the Royals All-Stars. Surely you're going to see Bobby Witt Jr. and Seth Lugo. Who else will you see representing Kansas City in Dallas? We'll be all over it right here for Royals Central and Royals on Sports Illustrated. I appreciate everybody watching us, and we'll be back next week with another edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Royals Central and Kansas City Royals on SI.